Okay, well, again, as I said to folks who joined us a little bit earlier, thank you for joining us tonight. I apologize for the technical difficulties there. I'm not sure what happened to the original link that was sent out, but like I said, I'm blaming the school district. It's their Zoom account, but we're all good now. Hopefully everybody was able to join us. I think I got to each mailing list and contact and Facebook and everybody else. I think we got the information out to everyone. So thank you all for joining us tonight. Good to see everybody here. We got another big crowd here joining us tonight. I think these roundtables have worked out pretty well for us. I appreciate you making the time to be with us. We did not have a meeting last month because we were basically kind of all just in a waiting position, waiting for New York State to take some action. They still haven't taken that action, but we basically just decided we were going to go on without them and try to get you the information that you need. We know we have some deadlines coming up, and so we wanted to make sure that you had everything that you needed. So we have a lot to talk about tonight, and perhaps our technical difficulties this evening are a metaphor for camping in 2021, and just you got to roll with it, right? Semper Gumby, always flexible, and trying to work with whatever challenges get thrown our way. So where are we now from where we last met about a month and a half or so ago? Since our last meeting, 16 and up became eligible for vaccination. And since I made this slideshow last night, 12 to 15, the FDA, if you missed the announcement this afternoon, the FDA did announce today that they are clearing the Pfizer vaccine for 12 to 15-year-olds. It next proceeds to the CDC, which will be meeting on Wednesday to discuss the actual distribution plan for that, which that'll be a formality at this point, and the CDC director is expected to sign off. And my understanding is that means that we could possibly see vaccines starting to go to folks by the end of the week or early next week. Excuse me, folks, give me just one. I got another email that's asking for the information. Okay, so that is certainly good news. Bring that back up. Okay, so that is part of the good news that we have headed our way. We are also, I'm sure you've been following as closely as I have, the announcements from the governor's office that the state is expected to have a widespread reopening by the 19th, which is next Wednesday, looking at facilities being open to 100%. I do believe that camps will be treated differently than restaurants and stores and all the rest of that stuff because children are involved, so we'll see what they're going to have for us. The CDC about 3 weeks ago did release their summer camp guidance, which we will be talking about. And yet there's still no guidance from the New York State Department of Health. So if anybody saw my slideshow, the last time we had the hourglass emoji where the sand was running through, I chose the one where the sand is all out because we are out of time for them. But they have yet to share their wisdom with us. I'm going to talk about the COVID protocols. We do have some COVID protocols that we have set up. I will get to that at the end of our presentation tonight, but I have a few other things that I wanted to get to first. So wanted to put in a plug, just a quick announcement again for the camp cards promotion. If your scouts are interested in raising some money to help defray the cost of camp, even if it's retroactive to after the deposits and the balances are paid later this week, they can still do that. And there are 2 different cards, one for the Capital District area, one for the North Country. And there is a website there as well as the contact information for our 2 professionals that are working on this plan. And it's very simple because it's a $10 card and the unit and the scout get 50% commission on that. So it's a lot less complicated than popcorn and all the other things, different prices and different products and stuff. Really easy to carry a bunch of them around in your pocket and sell them $10 a piece. Okay, so a few things that are heading our way. First off, registration. We have the deadline for the balance of payments is May 15th. We extended that. We were originally May 1st. We did extend that for you folks to give a little bit more time with the COVID situation this spring. So that is due May 15th. That is this coming Saturday. So the expectation is that all monies will be fully paid up by Saturday. all the payments go through the scouting event account. So we had some issues with this when people were putting in the deposits where, and then like multiple deposits were being made, and folks sometimes kept going in through the calendar and basically created a new transaction and a new unit registration each time they did that, which then have to be merged back together again for the unit. Once that unit registration is created, which all of you have, and it's tied to the account of the one individual who made that deposit, made that registration, that person just needs to log into their scouting event account, go to the homepage of the Twin Rivers Council. Up in the upper right-hand corner, there's the volunteers tab. And the first thing on there says log in to scouting event, log into your account. And that's how you will access into your troop account and make all payments right into that. So that way we're not duplicating and creating new accounts by adding stuff. So Scouts can be added to your roster. Weeblos can be added still until June 15th and still get the reduced rate without paying the late penalty. But you're just going to go right into that account, make the payments, and there you go. After Saturday, there is a $50 late fee that it gets attached to any unpaid Scout fees. That again will not apply to the Weeblo Scouts. We know that we have some Weeblos that are crossing over. We have some new Scouts that may have just joined your troop recently. They have until June 15th to be able to submit their payments and still get the $475 rate because hard for them to make a deposit when they weren't even in camp yet or in your unit yet. So if you do have any questions, any trouble with that, please feel free to reach out to me or to Stephen Dunn at the office, and we will be able to assist you with that. You can move money around from one Scout to another. So if one Scout has decided that they're not attending, you can move the money that was already paid for that Scout to another Scout. Let Stephen know, he'll delete the Scout that's no longer attending, and then you can just issue the refunds within your troop unit for if you haven't made all your payments yet, and handle it at that level. But campership notifications should have all been received. My word that I got was that those all were out by today to the different units. So if you have any questions about that, you can let me know. And we did talk about this before, but our COVID specific cancellation policy was adopted earlier this spring, which is that if for any COVID related reason a Scout needs to withdraw, they can do so up to 2 weeks prior to their week of camp and still get the full refund. Basically at this point, after we get past this point where the payments are being made, if there's any withdrawals, that would be subject to the late, or I'm sorry, subject to the money that is, there's $100 that's kept. I think it's $100 that's kept by the council for charges that are already incurred. Campership notification just means that if you have a Scout that applied for a campership, then the notification of what their award, whether they received an award and what that award would be, went out to the camp troop contact over the weekend and by today. If you didn't have anyone apply for a campership, then it doesn't apply to you. Okay, any questions on the registration piece of this? Fantastic, all right. Just wanted to highlight a couple things just as reminders for the camp fees that every unit gets a minimum of 2 free leaders and then 1 for every 8. So it's basically 2 free leaders for your first 16 Scouts. And then for every 8 Scouts after that, you get another free leader. If you have additional leaders beyond that, then it's $100. If you have a leader that's going to be coming in for the full week, you can go ahead and register them through Blackpug and pay for that at this time. I've gotten some questions like, what if I have a leader that's only going to be coming in for 2 days or 3 days? No problem. I wouldn't go ahead and register them through Blackpug because the system only knows how to register them for the 1 week. It's going to charge you a full $100. What you can just do is if you've got folks that are coming in for partial weeks during camp, we'll just settle up with that at the counter in the office and when at camp. So basically it's the $100 is divided up as a prorated amount for the amount of time that they spend in camp. And you can just settle up with that, settle that up with us in person at camp. The sibling discount is in place this year. Apologies, this is a new software system for us. Blackpug was just launched for our council. It's been used by many other councils, but it was just launched by us back in February. And unfortunately, summer camp was kind of the guinea pig of a lot of this, one of the first big events that was in this. The sibling discount was supposed to just kind of automatically apply to based off of if you had two kids that were the same last name and same address and everything. There were some technical difficulties behind the scenes on making that work. It didn't work the way we expected it to. So we're basically just going in and applying that. Stephen Dunn is able to apply that behind the scenes. So if you haven't had a sibling discount applied to scouts that are siblings, just email Stephen, let him know the names of the siblings, and he can go in and retroactively apply that through your account. Credit cards are accepted at camp. Yes, Bob. Deadline for registering leaders and adults. No, not in terms of the payment deadline there. You can register them later. I'm going to talk about another aspect of registering adults. I'll talk about that in a second, which is a little bit different. But in terms of paying for the adults and registering for them, no, there is no deadline for them. Any scouts that want to come back for a second week of camp, want to come back as a provisional scout or attend our STEM week, there's a special reduced rate. It's just $250, which is a fantastic deal for a full week of camp. So just keep that in mind for any scouts that might be interested in that. Our program schedule is ready. So I did say that, when in our earlier reviews or earlier roundtable meetings here, I did say that I wanted to hold off on putting out the program schedule just out of an abundance of caution. Really two reasons why, actually. One of them was waiting on the state and looking at what the situation was looking like in, say, February or March, which looks a lot different than it does today, and hopefully will look like in June or July. I did have a little bit of a concern that the state might impose some regulations on us that might make it difficult for us to offer certain programs, or might make it so that we wouldn't be able to have as many programs going on in one program area at a time because of social distancing, and so we might have to cut some of the things in our program. I didn't want to put a schedule out that we then would have to pull back and chop up and re-release after scouts had kind of already gotten their interest up and committed to what they wanted to do. So I appreciate your patience as we held off on releasing that. I'm at a point now where, as I'll talk about in a bit, where I feel fairly confident as to where I think the state's going to end up, and so we're able to put forth our schedule. And the nice thing about it is we haven't had to make any changes to the schedule based on any of that. Our schedule will be able to operate just the way we had originally intended it to go. So that's fantastic. We did make a couple of minor changes to what was in the draft of the winter version of the leaders guide. We had law merit badge was still in there. I've removed law merit badge. That was very much tied to a particular staff member's skill set who he's unable to return to us this year. So we've replaced that with public health merit badge in the community safety area. Figure that's a fairly appropriate one. I believe that one rocketed up the scouting most popular merit badges list for 2020, but we'll offer that at community safety in place of law. We also were thinking about offering pulp and paper in nature. That also was based on the request and recommendation of the prior director who is unable to return this year. And so we looked at that with the new director and we decided not to offer that one this year. But we've elevated a couple of the other by appointment only nature merit badges to full status in the schedule, including astronomy and fish and wildlife management. So those are in the schedule. So those are the changes that you'll see compared to what we were originally planning to launch. The minor changes, but that's out there. Still finalizing the details on STEM week. That's week 6, working on setting up with instructors to see what we're going to be offering on that one. So that's the one piece that I don't have yet, but we'll work on getting that together in the next couple of weeks. We are going to be doing online merit badge registration this year for Rotary. This is a new experience for us. So for the units that have been with me in the past, this will be new for you. For the Wakwamani units, actually, you guys have done this before, although it's a new platform. It's not the same website that we had in 2019. So it'll be a little bit new for everybody. We are going to be using the same Black Pug registration system that you're using currently to do your camp payments. That's how you will do the online merit badge registration. We'll have some more information about that coming out as far as the mechanics of how you do that. My target goal for when we're going to launch that will be the evening of June 1st. We will do it in the evening, so it's not during the business day or anything like that. You'll be able to access that probably at 7 o'clock or 7:30. And so those merit badges will go live and scouts will be able to register. Actually, the unit leaders will register on behalf of the scouts. So it's not an individual scout registration. It's part of the reason why I wanted to see when we were able to get the schedule out. So you got a couple of weeks now to be able to get the schedule out to your scouts, have them give you their choices and collect that information so that you can do the registration online. Any questions on that?
Just one question, Brian. You said that the schedule for the merit badges is going to be out before the 1st of June?
Schedule's going to be out either tonight or first thing tomorrow morning. Schedule's done, so it'll either be posted this evening after the meeting, or I'll send it out to you guys tomorrow morning first thing. So you'll have the schedule. It'll be posted to our website. It'll be out there. And
Great,
you're seeing it right now. This is the schedule. So this is what you guys will be getting in your mailboxes, email. Those are on my camp emailing list. We'll get this. If you're not on the leader emailing list, I've got basically 2 unit contacts per troop. This will be posted up to the camp website as well. So you could just go check that out. Can we register our whole troop at once, or is it by scout? So the unit leader, I'm not sure I'm necessarily able to answer that, because I haven't worked through the mechanics of the Scout Black Pug registration yet. I think there might actually be 1 or 2 people on here that may have some experience with that, but you're going to register the troop all at once, whether it's going in. My guess is it's probably Johnny Scout, and then you select here are the 4 merit badges for Johnny Scout, and he's set, and then you go on to Mark Scout and etc. But that's a question I'll have to look into, just because, as I said, we launched this in February, so I haven't used the registration system yet. We will have some more information about that before it goes on. Again, it's based on how you register them. So if you're looking to register a group of scouts for a particular merit badge session or TTFC or whatever it is, that's how you register them in. You're going to register them for the classes you want to register them for. Okay. So for our staff updates, we have got a fantastic staff that has been assembled. We have folks from both the past Rotary, there's some of them are on the screens here with you. And we have folks from both the Rotary and Waukpamani staffs will be together this summer. So those of you that are joining us for the first time from Rotary, from Waukpamani, you will see some familiar faces, which was really important to us. We wanted to make sure that we had that continuity in place and that team approach to the summer. So we're really excited and looking forward to that. We've got some great staff members joining us from Waukpamani that are bringing some great skills. Current needs are actually pretty limited at this moment compared to a lot of my colleagues around the Northeast region. We are still in the process of looking for a shooting sports director. We may have a possible line on one, but that has not been confirmed. So if there are any shooting sports director candidates out there, 21 plus, feel free to reach out to me and be happy to talk with you. We're looking for kitchen staff. It's pretty much an annual thing at this time of year, looking for some folks to help us out in that area. And we do have some room for some more CITs. We've got 5 CITs signed up, which is great. But we do have room for more than that. Typically, we oftentimes will run roughly about a dozen, 10 to 12 CITs in a class. So we do have room for more counselors in training. The CIT is 15 years old, and it's a fantastic program for an older scout who's not yet 16, not able to work for us full time. But it involves the 2.5-week training program. You start during Monday night of our staff week and commit to the first 2 weeks of camp. They go around, they experience working in different program areas. They are able to learn and to become, instructors, or help assist with instruction, I should say, in the program areas. But it's a half-day commitment. So the half day they spend working as a CIT. The other half of the day, they are expected and encouraged to go out and work on personal advancement. So they can go do merit badges, do COPE, do BSA lifeguard, things like that. We've got a few former CITs on the call here today, a few parents of former CITs. So we got a bunch of evangelists here for the quality of the CIT program. We're pretty proud of it. And it's led to some really strong staff members, and some of the folks that are on here on this call right now that were CITs are now senior directors. So it's a nice way of building up our program of staff and the continuity of developing our staff culture. So if you have anybody that's interested in any of those positions, they can feel free to submit an application. We have an online form that's right through our website at rsrbsa.org, and we'll bring them in. Question about will STEM be added later? Since we haven't finalized that, yes, it will be added later. I'm going to try to get it in by June 1st so that we can get that as part of the merit badge registration. If I'm not able to get that all squared away before June 1st, we may delay the merit badge registration just for week 6, let weeks 1 through 5 go, and then delay week 6's merit badge registration until that's ready to go. We get those other ones in there because obviously they're going to want to know what STEM merit badges and NOVAs we're offering before they sign up for their other merit badges. And week 6 isn't until the middle of August anyway, so we've got a little bit of time for them to consider that and sign up. So bear with me on that one. The STEM always takes the longest part of this process of signing things, of figuring out our schedule, because we do rely on instructors that are coming from outside of our staff. We don't just reallocate. We don't typically just reallocate members of our existing staff and say, okay, you that's been working as a lifeguard all summer, this week you're teaching robotics or something like that. We have always looked to make this a real quality value-added program by bringing in people who are either professionals in the field or very knowledgeable hobbyists in some of these fields to come in and teach these skills. And so there's vacation schedules that need to be worked around, and adult responsibilities and whatnot that need to be worked around. So that one is usually one of the last pieces of the puzzle that comes together in scheduling. So just haven't had a chance to finish that up yet, but we'll be working on that. All right. Planning ahead, I've brought this up at every one of these sessions just because I want to keep making sure that everybody's hearing the message over and over again. But as you're planning ahead, everybody does need a medical form. It is an annual form. So if Scouts were not particularly active last year, we know that they didn't go to resident camp last year. Medical forms may have fallen by the wayside. We got to make sure that those medical forms are up to date before they come to camp. So medical form, all Scouts and all adults that are staying 72 hours or more need all 3 parts of the medical form. So that's parts A, B, and C, all the way through to the doctor signed off portion on the last page there. If an adult is staying for less than 72 hours, and that's a cumulative total, so 24 hours on Monday, 24 hours on Wednesday, 24 hours on Friday kind of thing still counts. But if they're staying for less than 72 hours cumulative, we need at least the part A and B of the medical form. If they don't have the part C with the doctor's signature, that's okay. But we'd certainly take that if you've got it. But we do need the parts A and B because that gives us the contact information, the health history information, just in case that individual has any medical issues while they're at camp. We'll be able to help them out with that. And then the other issues are the other requirements for adult registration, and this goes back to the question that was asked earlier that I said I wanted to put off part of that, is that I want to try to make sure I'm clear on this. There's ultimately 2 kinds of adult registration for summer camp. There's the paying for an adult, which is kind of what you're doing through the Black Pug system, and what I said, if you've got partials, we can take care of that at camp. That's the making sure that the registration is there for those that are your free adults and the payment. There's another piece of this, which is that there are certain requirements for our adults that are going to be in camp. First of all, New York State requires that every adult that's going to be spending time with the troop in camp has to be cleared through the New York State Department of Criminal Justice Services background check. And that's very easy to do. I take care of it. I just need their name and their birth date, and we will take care of making sure that that process takes place. But I need that information before they come to camp. And we also require that every adult that's going to be spending time with the Scouts at camp needs to have current youth protection training. So this does not apply to somebody who maybe is just dropping off gear or is a short-term visitor that's coming in for a brief moment, although I'll talk about that later. This basically is for those unit leaders and other adults, because sometimes I know some parents are like, I'm not the leader, that's that guy over there with the fancy patch on his shirt. When we're talking about this policy, this is all adults over the age of 18 are going to need to submit this if you are going to be spending significant time with the troops. So that would be, I would say, anybody that's going to do an overnight, and anybody that is going to maybe come in and do adult coverage for a period of time during the day, because you've got one leader that's got to go to work for the day and another one's going to come in and sit in the campsite for 8 hours or something like that. That person would also meet this definition of spending significant time accompanying the troop. Those people need the DCGS clearance and the current youth protection. And I'm going to show you how you do that in just a second. We are going to be able to cross-reference our Twin Rivers Council adult leaders with the council's youth protection training logs. I'm going to ask for, and this is a little bit of a new thing that I haven't asked for in the past, if out of council units, if you guys could please bring me printed copies of your youth protection cards and bring them when you do check in. If you're an in-council Twin Rivers unit, you don't need to worry about that. We'll just get the records from the council. But if you are an out of council, please bring us those records since we won't have access to that. Okay, so let me answer that question there, Lee. So basically, what I'm encouraging you guys to do is for this purpose of the DCJS screening and the youth protection, just grab everybody. To me, one of the great things about this is your unit can get an annual background check on all of the parents and adult leaders and other kind of adults that are central to your troop and maybe go on outings or spend a considerable amount of time with the troop. And all you have to do is give me their birth date and their name, and I'm going to take care of the rest. And heaven forbid we catch anything, we're going to let you know, and you're going to know that is an issue. So far, it's knock on wood, everything has come out clean every time we've done these checks. But please submit everybody that you expect is going to be spending time at camp and anybody that you think might spend time at camp. So the example I give is, you got that younger scout who maybe they're going to have that homesickness issue or some other kind of an issue, and the parent decides at the last minute they want to come up and spend the night at camp. That's fine to a degree, although we've got some COVID concerns that we'll maybe need to talk about with that, but they can do that. But if they show up at 5:01 and say, I'm here to spend the night with my scout, I'm going to have to tell them they can't stay, because at 5 o'clock, the New York State Department of Criminal Justice Service is closed, and I cannot do a phone call to clear them to let them stay. But if you take care of everybody in advance, they're on the list, they're good to go. So please clear everybody for this. And if it ends up that that's an extra adult that is beyond your minimum or beyond your leaders that you've already paid for, yes, you can pay for them at that time. If they stay for a dinner, we'll just charge them for the dinner and cover it that way. So yeah, any of those little onesies, twosies, coming in, afterwards in terms of paying for meals or partial time, we can take care of that at camp at the office. So again, so the day visit question, I'm going to talk about this more when we get to our COVID protocols, but at this time, we are strongly discouraging any just visits, right? Any unexpected visitors, anybody that is an unnecessary visitor to camp. We are not going to be hosting our parents' night, Wednesday night barbecue this year, because with all of the contact tracing and COVID protocol issues that we have, it is not, there would be a significant risk to us and a challenge to us if we suddenly have, for example, on parents' night, 200, 300 additional people coming into camp and having to process them through a attestation and temperature checks and all the rest of that stuff just to go down and have a meal. We're not going to be doing that. And we would ask that during the week, you please strongly discourage just the pop-in visits, or I'm just here to see what's going on, or those kinds of visits. We know that some of the troops have rotational leadership where you've got one parent is covering Monday and another parent's covering Tuesday. Not talking about that. We understand that. That's fine. That's part of the process. But generally speaking, we're going to ask you to discourage the visits. And basically, if somebody has to come in and drop off gear, or somebody has to pick up a scout for an appointment or something, we're going to hold them at the office and ask the unit to send the scout up to the office to meet them so that they're not going into camp. So we're really talking about leaders here that are going to be providing some degree of coverage for the troop. So whether it's an overnight or whether one leader has to go to work during the day, so another leader comes and sits in the campsite for 8 hours, that's providing coverage for the troop. It doesn't matter that you're awake or asleep. Those people should be cleared through DCJS. The name, it's just, I guess it's their legal name. So in terms of driver's license or birth certificate, I guess I don't really know the answer to that question. I guess I thought that was usually the same, but I know there's people change their names. Actually, it wouldn't be the same necessarily because people change their names and last names and stuff. But I guess probably I'm going to go with driver's license is probably the most current version of the name. That would be the one that the state would be using for the check. So one other wrinkle to this is that if an adult is staying longer than 72 hours, and again, that's cumulative, so it doesn't have to be non-consecutive during the week, it is BSA national policy that leader needs, or that adult must be registered with the BSA. Okay, so if you've got a parent who currently is not a registered leader in your troop, they're not an assistant scoutmaster, they're not a member of your committee, they're not a scout, a merit badge counselor, and they're thinking about spending more than 72 hours at camp, you need to get them registered with BSA before then. That means the BSA adult application filled out, sent in, the charter dues, that stuff needs to be done for any leader that's spending more than 72 hours in camp. And that's because that triggers the BSA background check. And that is a BSA national policy. So that's something that we need to make sure is taken care of. And that takes a little bit of time, as you know, to get that done and submit it to the office and give them time to run the background check and everything. So I would ask you to please not wait until the week before camp to do that. But if you've got anybody that might be in that circumstance, to send it on. Okay. Yeah, Eric, I'm not sure what that issue is with that, but if you, with the email issue that you're referring to, but I would say that if you have continued issues with that, the person to direct that to would be Sandy at the office, and she would be able to help you with that, that side of things. Okay, any other questions about these? I know. Okay, so let me show you the very simple way that we are collecting the information. If you are on my unit contact list, which is again like 2 leaders per troop. Last week, I sent out a link to a Google form. It looks just like this once you click into the form. It is really simple. You're going to select your unit number from a drop-down menu. You're going to put the first name, the last name, the date of birth, and then there's a next question that got cut off from the bottom of this, which is actually 2 more questions, which is youth protection date. That is the date that the youth protection was issued and completed. And then the second one is just, is this person registered with the BSA, yes or no? And then click send, and it gets fed into the database that I'll be compiling. I ask you, please use this form. Don't just email me individual names and stuff like that, because there's 70 different troops with lots of leaders. Usually, by the time all is said and done, we usually have about 300 to 400 names that we run through this process. So we're asking for everybody to please put it into this form. It gets dumped right into a spreadsheet for me, and then we can send that spreadsheet to the state. It was emailed out to the unit contacts, and I will send it out again. I'll send it out multiple times, but the 2 troop contacts for each troop, or 1 or 2 troop contacts for each troop, received this emailed link last week. You can always add them later on. Okay, that's fine. I'm asking for this to be submitted by June 1st so that we can start getting people on board. I know that you may have crossover parents later on, or others that get added later on. We can take care of that if you send it to me, a couple days as minimum before arrival. So remember, you guys come in on Sunday. State office is not open on Sunday. So if units check in on Sunday and say, I've got these 3 additional adults that are going to stick around, we're going to have to say no, because I can't call the state until Monday morning. And so at a minimum, please, Wednesday or Thursday of the week before, so that we have time to process this and send it to the state.
Just a question, clarification, Brian, so I don't do anything incorrectly. So even though we have 2 adults already on the roster and registered to go to camp, we still want to do this form for each of those? Correct.
Yep, so that's,
okay.
These are 2 separate processes. So the one is for registration of payment, that sort of thing. But this is the one where I thank you for bringing that up. That's a great question. Any adult leader, any adult that is coming to camp, whether you've put them in Black Pug or for the troops account registration or not, please put them into the Google form. Okay, Bob, it is set so that I didn't have it set for the first 20 people or so that replied, but since then I have set it so that you will get an automatic email confirmation when you put somebody in. So that should come back to you when you enter that in there. Yes, Lee, including yourselves. Every adult that is going to be in camp, please put that registration in there. And to Tom's question, if 2 leaders, we need an adult for every 8 scouts. So sometimes 2 smaller troops that are within the same campsite for purposes of youth protection can be sharing that overlapping leadership. I know that does happen sometimes, but it also depends a little bit on the number of scouts that are in the site. If you've got more than 16 scouts in the campsite, then we would need a 3rd leader between those 2 troops. But if you think that you're going to have some, sort of issues with, with adult attendance, yeah, let me know and we can coordinate. We can get you in touch with the other troop if need be, and you guys can figure out if there's going to be enough coverage. Should a parent decide to stay with a home stick scout, they will need to complete YPT. Yes, they need to complete YPT. They need to be on this form and cleared before they arrive at camp. And if they're going to be staying for more than 72 hours, they need to be registered with the BSA. That is exactly the scenario that I'm talking about, why I'm asking you to please enter everybody now, right? Do it in May before the, my June deadline there, so that if that parent makes that last minute decision during camp time, we're not scrambling to try to get them added to this roster. So I would go and ask every parent to give me your name and birth date and run them through. And then it has the double effect of helps you out with your troop, knowing what your parents are, which your parents may be potential problems or not. The crossover parents need to know anything specific before registering for merit badge classes. You're just going to, the merit badge registration will be open once it's open, and it will remain open. So once they join, you would just collect their preferences, what they're looking to sign up for from them, and you just go in and register them. The schedule will be out there. The prerequisites are on the website. So all that information is there. You just share that information with them, ask them for what merit badges they want to sign up for, and then you sign them up. Yes, if you're sharing a campsite and you would like the contact information for the other unit leader, just shoot me an email and I will respond back with that contact information. Okay. All right, now for the fun stuff. The moment you've all been waiting for. Okay, so let me go through a couple of baseline things, and then we're going to talk about our COVID protocols that we expect to employ this season. So for those that may not have been diving as deeply into the world of COVID regulations as some of us have in the last year, I want to make sure that folks understand kind of where we're coming from on what's happening here. The Center for Disease Control in Atlanta, the CDC, the federal agency, issues guidelines, and their guidelines for summer camps and youth programs came out about 3 weeks ago. It's about a 6 or 7 page document that takes you through different types of situations for resident and day camp. These are scientifically based suggestions, but they are ultimately just suggestions because it is up to the states to decide how the states want to implement these and put them into regulations. So what we have been waiting for is for New York State's regulations, okay? Tammy, if you want to email me, if you could just shoot me an email about that, I will make sure that you guys get that link, and I'll double check why that didn't happen. We have been waiting for New York State to give us their version of this. The reason is because, of course, when New York State sends out their regulations, for us, that's law, right? We have to follow that. There's stuff in the CDC guidelines that we can, kind of adapt to our particular situation and maybe make a decision that it's maybe not appropriate to our circumstance. But when New York State finally gets around to deciding what they're going to implement for regulations, that's something that we must follow. That is something that we get evaluated by the Rensselaer County Department of Health, and we have to follow. That's why we've been sort of sitting here very anxiously twiddling our thumbs, waiting for the state to release this information. I've gotten some questions about the county. What is the county telling you? County, we are regulated by Rensselaer County. Rensselaer County Department of Health. The role of the county sanitarian is to interpret and implement the state regulations, which means because there are no state regulations yet, the county sanitarians ultimately don't really know anything more than we do at this point. We have had contact. I've been in contact with our county sanitarian. We have a very good relationship with our county Department of Health. And that's a very productive relationship. She is able to offer us some of her, kind of guidance as what sounds good, doesn't sound good. But until New York State says this is the law for this summer, we're all just sort of guessing, is kind of the position that we're in right at this point. The New York State Department of Health and the county DOHs have sent out the CDC guidelines. So we are interpreting that as them sort of suggesting that this is a guideline that they will probably be closely hewing to, which is what we would expect. But anybody who has been following the announcements from the governor's office over the last 13 months or so knows that, whatever happens to come out of the office at any point in time is what the rule is. So we have gotten graduations and proms and all those regulations out. So my hope was that we were up next, but we've got the state fairs have come out. They got to get to summer camps eventually. So what does that mean? It means that we have made our protocols based off of the CDC's guidelines, which are based off of their scientific, studies. It's based on the experiences of summer camps that operated last year. There were a lot of summer camps that operated in 2020, including some BSA camps did operate in other parts of the country. We have been following BSA. BSA has been holding webinars for camp leaders. I've got another one coming up in 2 nights, or 3 nights, where they're going to be doing a tabletop exercise for COVID. So I've been doing a lot of that. I just came back from National Camping School, where I met with 25 other camp directors and compared notes on what we're all doing. So that's what created this policy. What that means is, at this point, based on where I'm seeing New York State going, my gut is that New York State is not likely to be more strict than what we are talking about here tonight and what the CDC has issued. There's a possibility, seeing as how we're seeing that trend of opening up New York State on the 19th and stuff, we could see that some of this stuff might get more relaxed. And if that happens, we will respond accordingly. We will determine whether or not that's appropriate for our situation. So the document that we've got done and that I will share with you guys later is at this point to be interpreted as a draft. It's a living document until we get the actual hard regulations from the state. So I apologize for the lengthy preamble, but I want you to know kind of where we're coming from and why this has been a little bit of a complicated process. All right, so what we are asking for and looking at in terms of our protocols for camp. I'm going to take it step by step. The first is pre-camp. Pre-camp, we are asking folks to do what is basically we're calling a voluntary, and I'm going to emphasize that word again, voluntary self-quarantine in the 2 weeks prior to coming to camp. What does that mean? Basically means follow the CDC's guidelines and don't take any untoward risks, right? I wouldn't go to, a mosh pit with your favorite 100 friends, or things like that. Try to stay in, closer to home. Try to avoid larger crowds, things like that, that puts you in a better position before camp. We're strongly encouraging folks to be vaccinated. The vaccine will be eligible for 12 and up by that point. That covers our entire staff. That covers a very sizable portion of our camper population will be eligible to be vaccinated before summer camp starts, as well as all of our adult leaders. One of the keys to this, and we'll talk about this in a bit, is that, as you probably know, under CDC guidelines, a vaccinated person does not need to be quarantined, even if they come in contact with a person who tests positive. So when I've been talking about this with my staff and strongly encouraging them to get vaccinated, for me, that's a program continuity issue. If I'm just going to pick a random position, but let's say an aquatics director was not vaccinated and came in contact with a scout who tested positive, I just lost my waterfront for 2 weeks, right? And that's not something that's going to affect 2 weeks worth of program. And obviously you don't want that to happen. So that's the message that we have for our staff. It makes your lives a lot easier too. Fewer people will have to be quarantined within your troop if people are vaccinated. There is a pre-camp screening checklist. You guys are used to this. This is the attestations that everybody does. Have you been feeling sick? Have you did the 5 or 6 questions that you answer before you go to work every day? We have a version of that. If you've been doing council events in the last few months, you've done a version of this. The Health and Safety Committee, the Council Health and Safety Committee right now is working on unifying that. We've had a couple of different forms that have been used by different district events over the last few months. The Council Health and Safety Committee is looking at uniforming that and making one form that can be used for all of our events. So that is the form that we will use for summer camp. Once that's published, I will get that out to you. We'll ask people to do a self-assessment prior to coming to camp. And this last bullet is hopefully the obvious part. If you're experiencing symptoms, you do your check before you get in the car on Sunday. If you're experiencing symptoms, if you've recently been diagnosed with COVID, if you're awaiting test results, or if you've been in close contact with somebody who tests positive, don't come to camp. Okay, don't get in the car with 3 other people and all that stuff. Yes, one of our favorite health personnel just reminded me, documented vaccination doesn't mean that the attestation doesn't have to be done. So I'm vaccinated. If you're vaccinated, you still have to complete the attestation self-check before you come to camp. Okay, so that's before you get in the car. These are the things that we're going to ask you to take care of. For check-in and drop-off, as always, our check-in starts at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't know what time check-in was for Waukpamity, but ours is at 1 o'clock. We are asking people, please do not start gathering in the parking lot till 12:30, because the last thing we really need is for 10 troops of kids sitting up in the parking lot, wandering around and kind of mingling with one another while they're waiting for the troop guides to come up there. We will send our staff guides up at 1 o'clock to begin the process, but we are having staff meeting and staff lunch right up until that time. So we can't really get there any sooner than that. So we ask you to please not get there super early. 12:30 to start coming in, gather in the parking lot. The troops will be met in the parking lot, and your guide will then take you down to the campsite. Only those individuals who are staying in camp are going to be permitted to go past the parking lot. So if you have parents that are just dropping kids off, right? They're driving up as part of the carpool, or they're dropping off their child. They get back in the car when the troop starts heading down to the campsite. They get back in their car and they head down the hill. Okay, so we're asking, I know sometimes parents like to, do the Sunday experience and walk around with them and do that sort of thing. Part of the COVID protocol is we're asking only those people who are going to be through the intake process, the scouts and the adult leaders who are remaining in camp are going to come past the parking lot into camp. Our medical screening process, for those of you that have been with us in the past, this will be very familiar. There's not much of a change to this, but we will have 3 to 4 different sites around the camp. It's usually the Grizz Pavilion and the Health Lodge and the cot shed up between Taconic and Spruce campsite and like one other location. We will have 3 or 4 medical officer personnel that will be distributed around the camp to conduct your med checks. So your troop guide, once they take you down to the campsite, the scouts can start stowing their gear and you guys can start unloading things. And the troop guide's responsibility is going to be to kind of keep an eye on that spot. And when that's clear, when they can see that there's no line at that table, the guide is going to take your troop over there to go through the med check process. This prevents us from having like a line of 100 kids standing outside the health lodge door or anything like that. We've been doing this actually for years and years. So it works out really well for our COVID situation. The medical checks will be very similar to what you've always done in the past. The scout and leader will go through a review and a medical interview with the medical officer based on their health form. They will also complete that same pre-camp checklist, the one that I'm going to send out to you that I'm asking you to review and make sure you've done, sort of do a mental self-check before you go get in the car. This time we're going to actually go through and you're going to sign it and hand it in. So we've got the paperwork version of it as well. Do that with the medical officer at that time. This is when the buddy tag will be issued. If there's somebody who does not pass through the COVID protocols, that person will be immediately segregated away from the rest of the unit and isolated away from them and enter into our COVID protocols. Yep, the guides will take care of you. Once the guides greet you in the parking lot, you are in their capable hands for the better part of the afternoon. They will take you to the campsite. They will, guide you there. You guys will start to unpack your things. Usually get into swim trunks is usually the first priority. And one of the nice things about this way of doing things is that the guide or the guide's assistant, because we usually have 2 staff members with each group, can kind of keep an eye on the medical officer. If they've already got a troop with them, no sense going and standing in line waiting next to them. You guys can keep unpacking, getting your chuck box ready, whatever. And then when that table is opened up, when the medical officer is clear, the guide will say, okay, come on now, and we'll go on over and get med checks. And then after that, they'll begin their tour. Lee, the medical meds, kids who need their daily meds, that's our normal protocol. The medical officer will be in the dining hall. Basically, assuming that the meds are meal-based, which most of them usually are, they usually get taken at meal times. They will go see our medical officer who's on our call here tonight, Tyler Henderson. He will be at the dining hall. They will see him. He will give them their bag with their meds on it. He will watch them take the meds and document that. If they need them at a different time, like first thing in the morning when they wake up or at bedtime, they will tell the medical officer that when they check in, and that will be worked out and they will have that opportunity as well. Tammy, I'm going to get to the tents in a second. Meals, I'm going to get to in a second. We're going to go, I got a lot to go through with the COVID stuff. So if we could maybe just keep questions to what we're specifically talking about on this, and then I will get to, I think I will answer a lot of your questions as we go through the process here. Yes, inhalers that are necessary for emergency treatment can be kept with the Scouts. Same thing with EpiPens. EpiPens, inhalers stay with the Scouts. All the other meds go with the health officer. Adults, you can keep your meds with you as long as you can keep them secure, though you're welcome to turn them over to the health officer, particularly if they need refrigeration or some other form of special care, which we're able to provide. Okay, I know that Waukopmund has done prior submission of medical forms and review of medical forms, and we are planning to do that this year. I just haven't worked out the details of what that's going to look like yet, but we will do that, and I will have more information for you available on that. So you will be able to send in the medical forms for prior review to make sure that everything's there, make sure the doctor's signatures are there, and et cetera. If you would like to do that, we will have that. That doesn't stop the process of, on Sunday, each scout and leader going through that medical check process and reviewing the form with the scout or leader to make sure that they know everything that's on that form. Okay. Anything else related just to the medical check-in on Sunday? Okay, fantastic. Okay, some of the additional COVID protocols. We will be employing cohorts, similar to how you may have seen in schools or how they've tried to make it work anyway. It's obviously a lot more complicated at the high school level than it is at the elementary level, but we will be employing cohorts. We expect that New York State will require this as well. Our plan is that each campsite will be designated as a cohort. We have a lot of shared campsites this summer, a lot of 2 small troops in 1 campsite kind of thing. And it is our plan to designate that campsite as a cohort, which would be the simplest thing for you guys to be able to do. New York may set a cap on cohort size. They did last year for day camps. We don't know what that might look like. It might be 20, it might be 30. When we get that number from the state, we will revisit what the cohorts are looking like. If there are 2 troops within a campsite, then we will just split the 2 troops into 2 different cohorts within the same campsite. If we have a larger troop that is larger than that 1 maximum allowed cohort size from the state, we will have to split a troop into 2 cohorts. But until we get that magic number from the state, we just don't know what that's going to look like. So for the moment, we're assuming that every campsite will be a cohort. Within that cohort, every member of the cohort, adult and youth, will receive a wristband, like one of those Tyvek Carnival Fair wristbands, and it will be color coordinated based on your cohort. Based on the CDC's guidelines, the social distancing requirements for people within a cohort, right now anyway, is 3 feet. So it's less than between cohorts. The expectation is that when you're within your cohort, you can have more mingling, it's closer, it's only 3 feet social distancing. But when we go to people between cohorts, so somebody from Tuscarora and somebody from Iroquois, we need to maintain that 6-foot separation, or between a scout and a staff member. We need to try to maintain that 6 foot of separation. So this is where program is going to get a little bit tricky, right? Is because we're still going to run a program where scouts from different troops and different cohorts are going to be attending the same merit badge class. So we are going to need them to work with us and the seating arrangements in those program areas and with the staff to maintain that social distancing within those program areas between cohorts. So the kid from Tuscarora and the kid from Iroquois need to be a little bit further away. I'm going to strongly suggest, if possible, it might not be the worst idea if scouts bring camp chairs with them this summer, because that could help a little bit with some of the social distancing and some of the seating areas in program areas. We've got picnic tables, but it gets a little complicated when we start spreading people out. But if they have additional chairs that they can bring to the site and sit in, that could be very, very helpful with some of this stuff. The expectation is that within those programs, if they need to partner up, swim buddies was mentioned, canoeing, rowing, some first aid stuff, some cope stuff. Generally, the requirement or the expectation is going to be that they are partnering only with people within their own cohorts and working on that. We're still going to have to flex out some of the things. This is, again, when we get the details, this is one of those things where if people are vaccinated, this may help. that may help considerably if the state comes along and says, the vaccinated people have a little bit more flexibility here to be able to be in closer contact with one another. If I got 2 scouts that are vaccinated, then maybe they can be partners in swim buddies or canoeing together or things like that. So that can very much help us out. But this is the plan as of now, and we'll get more guidance from the state and the county health departments as it comes through. There may be situations. We do think that within some programs, there may be some close proximity to one another, but that may be mitigated by other factors. Masks, washing hands and sanitizing before coming in contact. So maybe you're about to do a COPE initiative. You're going to do a COPE low course element, and we need spotters. People need to be close to that person who's up on that wire so that they can spot them. If they're wearing a mask, if they've sanitized prior to going and doing that, they're within that 3 to 6 foot window there, but that may still be a safe activity. We'll kind of work with the staff on that. We'll work the health departments on that to do that. We may find that there's a couple of merit badge requirements that we bump on this summer. I don't know what they might be off the top of my head, but where we just can't mitigate our way around them being too close together to do something. We may not be able to do that requirement this summer, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. I know the aquatics committee has been working on plans for how to do aquatics in this environment, so we'll have some more for you on that. I know this was a big question. A lot of people were eagerly anticipating. At this time, and I wasn't sure about this 2 months ago, but at this time, I believe that my expectation is that we will be able to do double occupancy for our tents. Okay, was a little nervous about that at one point as to whether or not that might happen, but I think we will be able to do that. The requirement is that participants have to sleep head to toe. So the person on the left has their head at this end, the person on the right has their head at the other end. And so, Lee, I'm talking about our tents, our canvas wall tents. If you've got scouts that are bringing their own personal backpacking tents or something like that, then I think occupancy for a backpacking tent is probably going to be a single tent, unless it's a really big family type tent. But I'm talking about the tents that we provide, the big canvas wall tents. We will have double occupancy for those, and they have to sleep head to toe, which frankly has been the rule for a while. It may not be one that we've discussed with you a lot, but the Department of Health has always wanted participants to sleep head to toe on that, just for the health issues on that. So we think we're good there. This is what the CDC is saying. Nobody has said anything otherwise, and our local sanitarian has given me her take, which is that she thinks that this is appropriate, especially when you consider the ventilation that comes through our tents because they don't have a floor. So you get that breeze that comes through there a little bit. They have the wood platform underneath them, but the tent flaps can flop around there. So we think that this will work. So we'll wait to see what New York State says, but as I said, they seem to be trending a little bit easier at this point. And then the no more than 2 years difference between youth within the same tent, that's a national BSA rule. That's not my rule. It's not even New York State's rule. That's a national BSA rule that is supposed to be in effect and regulated by the units on every scouting outing that you do. When you do your weekend campouts and stuff, this is a youth protection rule. The reason for that is that the studies have shown that when there's youthful offenders of youth protection violations, it is usually a person that is more than 2 years age difference. The peak age of youthful offenders for youth protection situations is usually around 16, 17 age group. And unfortunately, that also includes within siblings. So that's why this policy applies to siblings as well. But again, this is a unit level enforcement issue. This is not something that I am managing or anything like that. But yeah. Can people tent separately if they want to? Absolutely, if we have the space. So if there's enough canvas that we've provided for people to tent individually, they can do that. If you want to bring backpacking tents, by all means, feel free to do so. And you're welcome to set up your own backpacking tents. And if people want to tent individually, that's totally fine. Most of the questions I've been getting about going the other direction, they were very concerned that scouts would not be able to tent together. At this time, as we sit here, I believe that New York State will allow that. Okay, general mitigation efforts, pretty similar to what you're seeing everywhere else. Masks will be required, except for swimming, sleeping, eating, and showering. Now, This is based on the CDC's summer camp guidelines. This is what their guidelines say. I know that since then, there's been some pushback to some of those guidelines from folks. In fact, the CDC director even came back out about a week or two later and said, "Oh, maybe it's a little too strict, and in outdoor environments, as long as they're separated away from people, they can take the masks off and things like that." So as of right now, this is what it is. It may change. Certainly if, scouts are walking across the big field between the two towers or something like that to get to community safety, and you're walking with your buddy and you separate out 6 or 10 feet from one another, that's an opportune time for a mask break. We know that scouts need to take mask breaks during the day, and that would be an ideal time to do that. But basically the expectation will be when they are around other people, whether it be in the program area, the campsites, if they are not eating, then they should be masked. Significant age gap for the scouts coming to camp, and have one younger scout who may be more than 2 years younger than the next closest in age scout coming to camp. How do we handle that? Under the youth protection protocols, if there's no scout that's within 2 years of that younger scout, he should be tenting alone. BSA also, for our age group, beyond the youngest Cub Scouts, for our age group, the BSA youth protection guidelines also do not permit a parent and child to tent in the same tent together. I'm going to leave that as these are unit level enforcements, but these are the guidelines, these are the principles, but these are unit level enforcement issues. Yep, I get it. I understand the little guy being on his own, but tell him he's got a friend that's 3 feet away through 2 pieces of canvas on the other side of the wall there, and that'll be there to help him out if he has any issues. So other things that we'll do: hand washing and sanitizing throughout the day. We're going to put soap dispensers at the water fountains in each of the program areas. Those of you that have been with us on those hot summer days where the staff says, as soon as a scout walks into the program area, staff says, get a drink of water before you come over to the table. This year it's going to be get a drink of water and wash your hands before you come over to the table, so that they're washing when they come to program areas. Hand sanitizers on all the tables in the dining hall. Basically, the drill. We are also going to ask the units to do a daily health screening in site. Essentially, what's going to happen is this: I'm going to give you a roster. It's going to have your troop roster on there. There will be room to add, if you've got an adult leader that we weren't expecting, that you can add onto the list. But otherwise, we'll have that roster there. You'll have basically 5-6 copies of that roster. You'll have the attestation questions on there, and we're going to ask you to do a health screening with each of your scouts and adult leaders each morning before coming down to breakfast. So we're asking each unit to designate your campsite safety officer, who is going to be an adult who's going to conduct that check. So when you rally your troop to the colors in the morning to get them ready to head down to breakfast, first thing you do is just go around and do the attestation with everybody, sign the form, and when you walk down to breakfast, you're going to hand it to a staff member, and we're going to collect those forms. That's the job of the campsite safety officer, and that's our daily health screening. If anybody fails that screening, has any of the symptoms, then they're going to enter our COVID protocols and they'll go to the health lodge. But otherwise, folks go about their day. Any questions about these mitigation steps? Temperature, you do not need to bring your own thermometer. You certainly can if you want to. Temperature checks, I think we're still having that conversation with the Health and Safety Committee as to whether or not we're going to do that or not. There's some thoughts about the extreme heat, extreme cold tends to mess around with the contactless thermometers, and it tends to be fairly warm during the summertime. So temperature checks may be included as part of that, but if it is, we will provide the thermometers. If you have one and want to bring it, feel free, but we'll provide a thermometer for every campsite. Any other questions on this? It's a great question. That's a question I've been asking myself certainly all this spring. How do we differentiate between allergies and COVID symptoms? Sniffles, sneezes, cough, enough to put the COVID protocols in place? Not necessarily, no. An errant sneeze or cough is not necessarily enough to activate the COVID protocols. These COVID protocols are not going to be any different than what Scouts have been doing every single day if they've been going into school this year. It's what most of you or many of you have probably been dealing with before you go into work. I know I have to do an app every morning. I have to answer 3 or 4 questions and send it into school before I'm allowed to go into school. So it'd be the same kinds of questions about fevers and the rest of that sort of stuff. Anything else? Okay. I'm going to talk about meals. Meals will be coming up soon. I'll get into that. Cleaning in the, we're going to be doing cleaning. Certainly the CDC has even come out and said that we know a lot more about COVID than we did 12 months ago as far as touch surfaces versus aerosolized inhalation. It is much more an aerosolized inhalation thing. It's really not as much of a touch surface thing as they originally thought back then. But that doesn't matter. We're still going to be cleaning everything. And quite frankly, it's good for many other reasons related to sanitation in addition to COVID. So the staff is going to be responsible for regular cleaning of high touch surfaces and common areas throughout the day. That means program areas, program area tables, equipment, cleaning, they're going to be working with the Scouts to clean rifles before the next person takes them, those kinds of things. In some cases, like maybe in handicrafts, we're going to work on trying to identify, like, here's your bag of markers and crayons to use for Art Merit Badge that you're not going to share with anybody else. Where each program area will have specific requirements related to that. And we'll be hitting, the dining hall, the common area latrines, the trading post, the office, those kinds of issues. The latrines and the campsites are going to remain the responsibilities of the units, but we are going to need more regular sanitation of those spaces. Right now, our health permit requires us, as any of you that maybe have spent a weekend with us in the off season, and have seen the camp master come around 3 times during the day to sanitize the latrine. Right now, our health department permit requires thrice daily cleaning of the latrines or sanitation of the latrines. We are operating under the assumption that will probably still be in place for this summer. So that doesn't necessarily mean you have to do a full thorough cleaning of the seat. If the facility itself is clean, doesn't necessarily need to be swept out each time. It might just be the sanitizing of the handles and the touch surfaces. But as of now, 3 times during the day, we'll need the unit to do that. So it's additional chores on the duty roster, but that's unfortunately part of the process there. And I think we're going to hang a clipboard with the signs, kind of like when you go into the restrooms at the restaurants and stuff, where the staff has signed to make that they cleaned it at 1 o'clock or whatever. We'll just have that so that people can sign that it's been done. Any questions on that? Okay, meals. So for those of you who maybe have never been to our dining hall before or unfamiliar with it, one advantage that we do have is that the 2 ends of the dining hall are screens, wall-to-wall, ceiling-to-floor screens. And we have big fans on the tops of those walls that are able to exhaust the air out of the space. So from a ventilation standpoint, even though we're not outside, we have pretty decent ventilation. I know it can get hot and stuffy in there when we've got 200 to 300 people in there. Some of you have experienced that joy before. We're not going to have 200 to 300 people in that dining hall at all this summer. And so that should make that easier. But in order to handle the occupancy requirements that we are expecting, our plan is that we are going to extend the meal periods, and we will do 2 shifts of meal times within that period. And my expectation is that we will be able to get people through the meal and out within 30 minutes. So with maybe about a 10-minute changeover reset time in between the 2 meals. What that means is that breakfast is going to start a little bit earlier than normal for the first shift. Normally we started at 8 o'clock. We're probably going to be starting at 7:45, maybe even earlier than that, to do the first shift, then the second shift. My plan is that the units that are closest to the dining hall will have the earlier shift. It's easier for you to get there. The units that are further away from the dining hall will have the second shift. We will do that with all 3 meals. Lunchtime shouldn't be too much of an issue for us to fit that in because we already have a 2-hour block between the end of morning program and the start of afternoon program. Dinner, we may shift it a little bit earlier, but also know that it's going to maybe go a little bit later, maybe 15 minutes on each side kind of thing to get people through. But we should be able to get people through the meal faster because it's going to be half the people that we would normally do for a mealtime We're not going to be doing as much program during the meal, songs and stuff like that. So that means that the meals, basically, you're going to come through. We're going to be set up for we're going to be set up for a cafeteria style service. So the way we're going to have this set up, many of you are familiar with having the buffet line that runs right down the center of the dining hall. That's going to be turned perpendicular to where it has been so that it's across the two kitchen doors. You're going to come in on the side of the dining hall that is on the trading post end. And basically, I think the way we'll probably run this is that when people come in, they'll be able to just jump right online and start working through the lines and then go sit down at a table, eat their meal. When they're done, get up and go, right? There's not going to need to be a wait for everybody gets admitted at the same time, everybody gets dismissed at the same time, sort of thing. So that will allow for the staff to do cleanup and turnover between the two shifts of the meals. Folks will need to be socially distanced. The requirements at this time are still that we're expected to have 6 feet of social distancing between people when they're eating because the masks are off. Not sure if we're quite be able to get to 6 feet, but we're planning on doing half occupancy at the table. So 4 people in basically a diagonal pattern so that you don't have somebody sitting right across from you at the table. So the meal times will be given to you. You will know what they are. And as I said, generally speaking, it's going to be the sites closest to the camp will have the early shift. The sites further away will have the later shift. The sites that are kind of in the middle may go to early or late a little bit, depending upon the numbers of campers that are in each of those, so that we can try to keep it balanced and have roughly the same number within each one. Something else that I plan on, just to that point, something else that I plan on doing this summer that we've not done in the past is have a Scoutmaster meeting, a unit leader meeting before you come to camp, the week before, and we will use Zoom to do that. You won't have to come out to camp for it, but that way, since we've got a lot of new things, we've got a lot of new units, we'll have an opportunity for us to go over some of the stuff that we would normally do in a Sunday night meeting before you come out to camp. And a question like meal times would probably be done with that. The meal times are not going to overlap with the program areas. That's program times. That's why we're going to have to start breakfast a little bit earlier, because 9 o'clock program starts, program ends at noon. Afternoon program is between 2 and 5. We have enough time. We got 2 hours in the middle of the day to be able to pull off lunch. We'll have to shift breakfast a little bit earlier to be done by 9. And then we've got dinner after the fact. So the reason we're doing it this way is so that we can still maximize program. This doesn't affect program time at all. Question about flags. The staff will still be doing this, putting up and taking down the flags at the parade field behind the dining hall. However, we are not going to be expecting the troops to come. I think you're welcome to come to flag raising or flag lowering, but keep in mind, if you're coming to the second shift of breakfast, flags are probably going to be going up a good 45 minutes, maybe even close to an hour before your breakfast shift starts. So there's kind of no point in bringing them all down just to watch the flag go up and then sit there for an hour waiting for your time to eat. So if you're there for the first shift and you want to come out and see the flags going up, that's fine. The other thing is, for some of our weeks that are going to be larger, it's a little tighter in that field to be able to assemble everybody in that particular field for the flags. So we don't really want the entire camp down there for flags. But if you want to come down, you're welcome to do it. It just isn't going to necessarily work. It might be that the troops that have the first shift will be there for flag raising before breakfast, and the troops that have the second shift might come out to do flag lowering in the afternoon, in the evening, because it's right after their meal. So you each can maybe take one half of the day. Otherwise, we would just encourage you to do the flag ceremonies within your campsite. But we will be raising and lowering the flags. It's really just a space and timing issue. So the service, the way that the service of the meals is going to be different is that, unlike everybody walking down the line and grabbing the spoons individually, which is a no-no in COVID world, we will have staff that will be serving. So basically, the staff will all be gloved, PPE. We will pass the plates down the line of staff members, plate it up, and hand it to the scout at the end of the line there as they walk through the buffet line. Some things that in the past might have been on the buffet, we are planning to do on more of a grab and go model. So instead of having a salad bar, we plan on having some pre-made, salads in little clamshell boxes there that you can just take a salad and go to go along with your hot meal. So that's how we're working that so that everybody's not grabbing the utensils. Any other questions on food service? We do expect units will still have the opportunity to do the commissary, to do the meals in the campsites if you would like to cook out in their site. So that option will still, we expect, to be available for you. Anything else on food service? Okay, medical services, in case we need it, we are going to have an isolation area set up outside the health lodge. The testing portion of this, of our plan, we're still working out some of the details on that, figuring out what New York State's going to require and what is the best way for us to administer a testing protocol for those who might need it. We can get tests. They're not cheap. You know, they're not super expensive, but they're not cheap. So I'm not planning on ordering 1,000 tests to do during the summer, but we will have tests available to test those as needed. Costs will not be a reason that we don't do a test, but there are options both off-site and on-site that we could do. As of now, the guidance would be that if a member of your troop or your cohort tests positive, then the current guidance is that everybody in that unit would need to be quarantined, except for those who are vaccinated. So vaccination in this context is your get out of jail free card that they can go and continue to do their program. Somebody that's quarantined because they've been in contact with somebody in their cohort that has tested positive, we're going to really have to look at what does that mean to program, because the length of a quarantine is at least 10 days, which takes you well beyond our program experience. And there's only a limited amount of program that we could bring to them in the campsite without them going out and interacting with other people. So that's going to be a tricky one for us in terms of whether or not it makes more sense at that point, if we have to quarantine people, to just send those who have to be quarantined home and give them the opportunity to come back and finish their camp experience at a later time during the summer. This is why I really strongly encourage all those who are eligible to get the vaccine, because that's your get out of jail free card as far as the regulations go at this time. A few other things just as far as altered activities. As I mentioned before, we're going to strongly discourage unannounced or non-essential visitors to camp during the week. We're not going to do the camp parents' night barbecue campfire on Wednesday night. We're going to ask to try to limit the trips out. I know that some of your leaders are going to have to go into work and they're splitting time and helping you out. I understand that. We're not going to stop them from doing that. If we can try to make sure that the dentist appointment doesn't get scheduled for the middle of camp, that it gets done before or after camp or something along those lines for those youth activities that need to take them out of camp as much as possible. Once we get people on the site, we'd like to keep them on the site to minimize any interactions that way. As of right now, and I know this is the one that the kids are going to kill me for, but as of right now, I think we may have to close the basketball court and the Gaga ball pit. And the reason for that is because, as you know, Tim Sweet is excited about that. Okay. The kids are not going to be excited about that. But the problem with those programs is, as you know, they're passive programs where there is not active staff supervision of them, which means both of those are programs that encourage close physical contact, especially in Gaga, between people of multiple cohorts. And we have no record for contact tracing after the fact if somebody ends up testing positive. So barring a change in guidelines or kind of seeing where the situation can go, at this time we may have to do that, and I'm going to take my lumps with the kids. They're not going to be happy, but those, we can try to find other programs for them to do that doesn't involve those two things, but that's the concern. That's a lot, and I appreciate your patience bearing with me there. Can they go by cohort if accompanied by the adult leader? Maybe. I think we can take a look at that. I'm going to be honest, if we are not opening the basketball court, the basketball hoop is not going to be up. It's going to be taken off, the rim will be gone, because that's the only way to stop them. I mean, I've been up in the office at 11 o'clock at night, pitch black, and the only thing is a little bit of refracted light from the shower house, listening to of the dribbling basketballs. So nothing stops these kids from the basketball court other than literally taking it off the pole. So that's probably what we would have to do for that. Yes, good question, Rich, about the trading post. Trading post will be open. I'm looking at, and I haven't finalized it all yet, but we're going to try something new this year. My plan is we are going to offer an online store that will be available before camp, with the plan that families can order apparel items that would be then available to them when the scout arrives at camp. And there's a few reasons for that. One of which is we know that one of the big nights that parents like to buy the t-shirts and the sweatshirts and stuff like that for the kids is parents' night, and they won't be able to come in for parents' night this year. But a neat little add-on to this is that we have a limited amount of different types of options and inventory in the trading post, because we have to ensure that whatever we buy sells. With the online store, some of you that maybe in the past have looked at a staff jacket or a staff hoodie or staff, kinds of items and been like, I want one of those. That looks really cool. We can put vests and jackets and a bunch of other items that normally would not be in the trading post. We can put those up on the web store because they are made to order. You will have the option to be able to embroider them, possibly even put troop numbers on t-shirts. We're working with our local vendor on setting up some of these options. So when we have that information, that'll go out to the units, and the plan would be that folks could pre-order all that stuff, pay for it online, and either have it shipped to their home, or we will have it picked up and it'll be available for them when they arrive at camp. So sitting there waiting for them. So maybe grandma can send Johnny Scout a surprise, and grandma orders him a hoodie and it's waiting for him as a surprise when he gets to camp. Who knows? We'll see how this goes. Nope, the store will have credit card availability. The store will be open. We will have food in the store. We will have older items available in the store. We will have a limited amount of our newer items. I'm not going to have it completely bare of that stuff, but we are going to try to shift more of that to the online store, which will be available during the season as well. So it's not like if you miss it before the season, you're done. We will set up so that they can order something during the season and have it delivered to their house, mailed to their house. We always have limited or attempted to limit the number of people in the trading post at any one time, just because it's a loss prevention issue as well. We don't want 15, 20 kids inside the trading post running around, and it creates chaos and somebody puts something into a bag. So yeah, that's not hard for us to say, 3 at a time, 4 at a time in the store, just like you've been dealing with when you go shopping, go into stores in the last year, and they've limited the number of people available that can go into the store. Parents can pick up the Scouts on Saturday. Yes, parents will be able to pick up the Scouts on Saturday. Haven't thought about this too much, but we'll probably be a bit more lax with the being able to come down to the site and grab their gear and get them out, because they're going and they're leaving. So there's not going to be any interaction with other people. But obviously we're concerned about the health of all of our Scouts and leaders. We want to make sure that everybody is healthy and has a good time. We also have a responsibility to continuity of programs. So that's part of the reason why we need to make sure that, exposure to a staff member in 1 week doesn't then affect us in the next 2 weeks of camp. So we appreciate all the cooperation that you pay to our COVID protocols. What else? Thanks, Will. Other questions? I've stumped you all. There is a document that has been prepared that it goes more in depth onto everything that I just talked about with the COVID protocols, and I will share that with you guys. The one thing that, again, I would say, and it says it right on the document, that at this time, this is still considered a draft document until, and maybe a better way for it would be a living document, because it can be changed for the better or for the worse, depending upon where the situation heads, and based on what New York State tells us.
Hey, Brian, just a question. Did I see on that last slide that campfires were TBD?
Yes.
Is that ceremonial or a campsite?
So the large full campfire is to be determined, and that's because there's both proximity, physical spacing, separation, issues, and then there's the fact that even if we got people spread out a little bit, the stuff that goes on at campfires is literally the worst thing that you're supposed to be doing for COVID protocols, because the singing, the yelling, all that stuff, that's when you're maximizing those aerosolized spray. So we're looking at that one. I know some camps are figuring, they're just going to spread everybody out. We may be able to do something with that, though. Usually we fill most of our benches for our campfires. So if we were to spread people out, we got plenty of room in that amphitheater up the hill, but that would also require people to bring blankets or chairs or things like that so that we could fill up the hill, because they might be sitting on the ground. So that's one that we're looking at. You guys are welcome to have campfires in the campsites. This is not about that. This is about whether or not we put on a full campfire. And if we don't put on a full campfire, then we'll be looking at other ways to try to deliver that element of program, which could involve asking you to invite our staff to your troop campfires, and having some staff go around and visit with the scouts and do some performances in your campsites, which can be done in a better environment than the full big one there. Lee, the number of tents that are in the campsite, I don't remember off the top of my head what site you're in, Lee, but general rule is, although some of you guys have lean-tos, which are 4-person occupancy in your lean-tos, you're in Shindaku. So, okay, so you've got 4 lean-tos in your site, so that's 16 there. So let's see, so there's 11 tents in Shindaku, and then 4 lean-tos. Bear in mind, remember folks, that some of you are sharing campsites with other troops, so you'll need to work out with them how that is. Let's see, because you guys I got to scroll back up to catch some of these other ones that came through. I haven't posted the program schedule to the website yet. I didn't get a chance to do it this afternoon, but I also wanted to talk to you all first. So I will be posting the schedule up this evening or first thing tomorrow. This presentation, don't forget, is being recorded and will be posted to our YouTube page. So it'll be available for anybody that wants to watch it after the fact, or you can email it out to the parents in your troop. So that'll be available to them. The schedule will be up there as well as our draft COVID protocols I will distribute to you guys as well. Dan, let's talk. I know you're still figuring out your plans and stuff, so we can work with you guys. Dietary restrictions. Yeah, what I would have you do is any dietary restrictions that you have, about a week or 2 before you come to camp, just shoot me an email and I will forward that to our cook. We really don't need it that far in advance. We're used to dealing with a lot of the different, common food allergies and gluten-free, and we've seen a lot of different kinds of specialized meal requests and dietary needs over the last number of years. So we have experience with that. So just the best thing to do is shoot me an email about a week or 2 before you come to camp. I will give that to the cook, and I'll have the cook contact the family so that they can talk and directly communicate about that scout's needs. Yeah, I've got like a few gray hairs right here, but right now it's just a little patch. So we'll see what it looks like at the end of the year, Denny. Or yeah, Denny. Let's see. Yes, William, they can still sign up. The scout that was hesitant about COVID. It's one of the reasons why I knew I needed to get this information to you guys, because I know some of you have parents that have been waiting and saying, I'm not making any commitments until I get the COVID protocols. Well, here are our protocols. And as I would suggest, I do believe that we can frame this as, although I don't know if this is the best way to do, the quote unquote worst case scenario. I don't think that will be more restrictive than this. There's a possibility we could become less restrictive than what I've talked about, but I don't think would be materially more restrictive than what we've talked about here. So for parents that have been holding out, please encourage them to get that in. I will, as a point of personal request here, based on the numbers that were given to us when your troops put in your campsite deposits and projected, which I know this year projecting numbers is, it's a crapshoot. Who knows what you're going to be looking at. The number of projected that is given to us by the troops in the beginning, and the number of people that have submitted deposits right now, the delta between those two numbers is 250 scouts. That is making it very challenging for me right now to plan for camp and to figure out purchasing of program supplies and purchasing of things. Like, we are starting to buy things right now. And I don't know whether I'm buying for a camp of 750 scouts or a camp of 500 scouts. And as you might imagine, it's a pretty big difference between the two. So we would ask that, you know, there were a few units that haven't done any individual deposits. I know some individual families were withholding and waiting to find out this information before they put their money in. But I'm asking if you could please, let's make sure we get that information in, because to me, the money at this point is, it's information. It's the information I need to be able to order handicraft supplies, and we've already ordered patches based on the larger number, things like that. So that's one extra, and I know that some of that is crossovers, by the way. We account for the fact that there's always a difference in that number at this time of year because the crossovers haven't come in. So a portion of that is those crossover scouts, and a portion of it also is units that have just reached out in the last couple of weeks to sign up. But if we could get the numbers in, I'd really appreciate it. That would save a few of those gray hairs that Denny's worried about. Anything else? All right, folks. Well, I appreciate your patience with this, both in terms of this whole process of this spring, both in terms of my technical snafu at the beginning of our program this evening, and bearing with me for a fairly long meeting tonight. We'll continue to hold these. I don't know when the next one will be. We may, you know, we'll do one in June. And as I said, I'm also planning to do one for each week's leaders prior to you coming up to camp. So we'll keep the lines of communication open. And if you have any questions or anything like that, please feel free to shoot me an email. And I really look forward to seeing everyone out of camp. This is the longest I've been away from summer camp in a very long time. So I'm looking forward to being back and seeing everybody. So thank you very much, and have a great evening. The information that we talked about tonight will be posted on the site tonight, tomorrow morning, as soon as I get to it, okay? Have a great one, folks.